I'm having a really fucking hard day. I'm crying pretty much all morning. Noah called me and told me he doesn't want to see me today. And I'm really not okay. I'm really not fucking okay. I don't know how to deal with this shit. I don't know how to handle it. I'm hoping that somebody can just fucking help me. I just need help. I can't keep doing this. I really can't. I'm not giving up. But I really need somebody else to be strong for a little bit. I have to get out of this house. I don't think I should be alone today. It's like this reel in my head that just keeps playing things over and over again. I just keep thinking about Iraq and what happened and how worthless it makes you feel. And how no matter how many times people tell you it's not your fault, it never goes away that it feels like it is. All I keep having happen is this stupid reel in my head just telling me how worthless I really am. How I tried to kill myself with my fucking baby in the house. The house would have caught on fire, he would have died, and I wouldn't have been able to save him all because I can't fucking deal with this shit and I don't know how, and I'm fucking losing my mind today. I don't know how to fucking deal with it. I really don't. I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to move past it, and I'm so tired of pretending that I'm fucking okay because I'm not fucking okay. I'm really not. I feel like I'm fucking crazy. I feel like my head is gonna explode and my heart is gonna fucking shatter. And all I want to do is fucking sleep and stop thinking. And stop missing my kids so much and stop being judged for being so fucked up. I'm sorry. I'm reaching out because that's what you're supposed to do, you know? When you have days like this, you're supposed to tell people, hey, I need help, I need support, I need something. I don't know what the fuck I need, but I need something. Because I don't want to fucking do it again. I don't want to do it again and not fucking do it right. And then have to live through this all over again. And then I really will lose my kids for forever, you know? So what do? I just try to fucking pretend like everything's fucking great, and it's not fucking great. I'm not okay. I'm not okay, and I have no fucking idea how to make me okay. I'm trying everything in my power. I'm reaching out. My phone's gonna die. I'm sorry for fucking having a meltdown on fucking video to you, but I really need someone to talk to. And nobody fucking gets it. Oh, if I don't respond, don't be mad, okay? I just need a fucking minute. I'm gonna go smoke or something. I don't know. Just something. Are you awake yet?
Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Mondays. If you can't tell, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. Got a bit of a headache, so Elise is going to be taking the charge. Today, we're going to be talking about, I guess, what the whole concept of Mental Health Mondays is led up to, and it's just suicide, and the thoughts that go behind it, and to give everybody a little bit more context behind the video, if you'd like to. Oh, hold on. Let me unmute you first. There you go. You probably didn't hear any of that, but just as an introduction, can you say something? No audio on you. I see you, but no audio. Yep, no audio. Nothing yet. Let's see. Do me a favor and try and disconnect and reconnect and see if that works. Oh, there you go.
Alright, what's up? Can you hear me now?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, it's a little wonky. But I say again, if you are here today, we really appreciate it. Hard topic today. Not feeling too hot myself. That's why I look a little bit like a bum. I asked Elisa to kind of take charge of this one, so having a little bit of technical difficulties.
But he'll figure them out, don't worry. So to be completely honest, that was me in that video, if you can't tell. Aged a little bit. That was about 2 years ago, after my third suicide attempt. That video I saved because I knew at that moment I was never going to go back to that person ever again. That is the video I watch to know and feel how far I've come. Any of you that are struggling with suicidal ideation, any suicidal thoughts, please note that the suicidal hotline is streaming at the top. There's the crisis number that you can text if you don't feel comfortable talking on the phone. These are real issues that we face today, and these are things that I am passionate about because I have overcome them, and you can too. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about my Iraq story that I mentioned in the video, okay? This is very soul-bearing, to say the least.
It's going to be hard to hear.
It is hard to hear, and if there are other people that have been through any kind of sexual trauma, I urge you, if you can't handle it, I understand. If you have questions, you can always ask. Darion, my brother, is monitoring the stream because I cannot see it. I'm working from a single laptop. So I was in Iraq from 2009 to 2010. I was part of a singularly male group. It was the cavalry. I was 3 females, one of 3 females in the cav. 1 female was married, 1 female was gay. I was At that point, I was an 18-year-old woman, very naive. I always thought the best of people, and it led me down to a path that I wasn't expecting, because in the military, they give you this mind frame that you're supposed to trust your brother and sisters in arms. That's the naivety in it. You can trust people. It is possible. There are good people out there, but not all people are good. I was finishing my duty, and I was on my way back to my talk, or on my way back to my chew, excuse me, from the talk. I was riding a bike, and there was a man, probably 45 meters away from me, screaming at the top of his lungs for help. A brother of mine in PT uniform, which is the basic Army physical workout uniform, which is a gray t-shirt and black shorts. It's no way to identify them other by that they're in the Army. You don't know their name. That's not displayed, for any of you that don't know that. So I'm riding my bike back. I see this guy sitting there screaming for help. I stop my bike immediately. I get off. I'm in full battle rattle. Like, I've got my helmet on. I got my ACH, which is your helmet, my IBA. I have my weapon clipped to my IBA. Like, it's ready to be raised. It's not lock and loaded, because you're never lock and loaded on a base, just so you're aware. At least not at this point. He's screaming. I'm just going to give you the gist of it, because the details are still really hard for me to go through. I constantly go through therapy even now. I ended up being gang raped by 6 men. It sent me into a sort of mind frame I can't really tell you about. My dog knows I'm anxious, so he's all up in my face. So just bear with him for a minute. The repercussions of that day are something I can't ever really explain thoroughly. It's hard enough to just give you the gist of it. I've only actually told the story through and through, every moment, every second that I could remember, because there is a span of time where I was disconnected from my body, if that makes any sense, where I just wasn't there. I was literally not there mentally, but aware of what was going on physically, but my mind just shut down. I buried that secret. I buried it deep for years, until I had my first child, and something detrimental happened between my ex-husband and myself, and it brought up these other feelings of worthlessness, which you heard me speak about in the video. I want you to know, if you feel alone, if you've been through anything of this type of traumatic experience, you're not alone. You're not. And the best thing that you can do, and it's the hardest fucking thing. I'm sorry I'm going to curse, because sometimes curse words are necessary to drive through the emotion, is ask for help. Ask for help. And if you feel like the person you ask for help is not helping you, you seek somebody else, and you continue to do that. I'm going to reference a book that I picked up based on my therapist's recommendations. It's called Myths About Suicide by Thomas Joyner. He was a Harvard psychologist for a while. His father committed suicide, and so he decided to make his thesis a book about learning about suicide and what leads up to that. And the surprising facts of it is, I know a lot of people view suicide as the most selfish act a person can do, but there's something that you have to understand about suicide. Ish, will you let Remy out, please? There's something that you have to understand about suicide, okay? It's not selfish. It's not selfish to the person that is feeling that way. Their feelings are real. Their want to be better for everybody else, and yet not being able to see that light, that being at the bottom of the barrel and having no one that you can trust. That was me. I've been there. It has taken me 13 years. 13 years. Say that. 13 years of my life. I am 30. It's almost half my life to process and only in increments and get to where I am now. But it isn't impossible. We're going to spend this podcast kind of debunking some suicidal myths. We're going to debunk some statistics. We're going to talk about the hard stuff. I hope you guys stick around, and if you have questions, I'm willing to bare my soul. I'm willing to answer the hard questions. You are more than welcome to ask me anything, even if it's, did you not think about this? Did you not think about this? I can give you my answers from my heart because I know how I felt then and I know how I feel now. And I've come to this beautiful understanding about myself.
Let me just say this. Anything too inappropriate, we won't be addressing. And depending on how bad it is, I'll either mute you for 10 minutes or you'll just completely be kicked off my page. I want everybody to be respectful. Me and Elisa both have had experiences with this, and again, open forum. That's what I'm all about. Every project that I do, every podcast that I do, I want it to be an open forum. I want everybody to have a voice and be heard, but I don't want you to take advantage of it. So I just want to explain that before we go on.
Thank you, because this is definitely about support. It's not about tearing people down, but I don't want you to feel discouraged about asking the hard questions. Because one of the questions I get, because I am a mother, I was a mother before I attempted suicide, is, don't you think that's selfish? Why didn't you think about your kids? This is something that we're going to call them my baby daddies. There we go. My baby daddies have asked me. And one of them, I'm not going to tell you his profession. That's none of anybody's business, but he is in the medical field in a way. So the fact that he doesn't quite understand that aspect of it is kind of heart-wrenching. It's created a lot of issues. I am an alienated parent all the way. I have no idea what my boys do every day. I have no idea if they're in any extracurricular activities. All I know is that I'm not done fighting. I'm not done growing. And I'm going to start giving you the tools if you are one of these people that are suffering with these thought process. I explained it as a reel in my head that just kept playing over and over and over again. And it was this like continuous stream of negative self-talk. There was this beautiful video I watched. I'm just gonna throw this in there because I think it's very powerful, especially for that continuous loop of negative self-talk. Is those things that you're saying to yourself inside your head, I want you to think about the person you love most in your life, the person that you care about, would do anything for. And I want you to say those things to them. And if you can't, then you shouldn't be saying them to yourself. That is the number one rule. Because you are worthy, you are valuable, and you have something to give everyone. Everyone does. My mantra in life right now is I hope, I hope, I hope. I hope that my message gets to someone that needs it. I hope that I can impact somebody in a positive manner. I hope that I can give a book recommendation or a quote or a poem that impacts them and makes them seek more information, because can honestly tell you I've learned more about myself seeking my own knowledge than I have reaching out and having talk therapy with my therapist, even though she is fantastic. I will not down therapy whatsoever. It is very helpful and it's a very good way. One of the greatest minds currently in our world, Jordan Peterson, says having conversations is important. Hearing both sides and being open-minded enough to receive criticism about your choices and to give criticism about your responses. That is important in growth. You have to have an open mind. With that being said, I want to bring up a couple of myths concerning suicide. And you're going to have to forgive me because my notes are on my phone. So I'm going to have to get up my Google Docs and check out what I wrote down because I had some powerful points I wanted to be made. So there are many suicidal myths, okay? The first one is that suicide is an easy, cowardly escape. So Thomas Joyner is, again, the author that I'm going to be referencing a lot through this podcast, simply because his book impacted me the most when it came to understanding my thought process behind this. He makes it a point to point out that self-preservation is part of our DNA. It's a part of who we were before we were actually a people, if that makes any sense. The cavemen had self-preservation. They weren't going to run out and get stampede, ran over. They weren't. Self-preservation is real. So the people that are suffering with these suicidal thoughts, to battle them is hard. To attempt and fail, statistically, I think it is 1 death for every 20 suicide attempts. With our brothers and sisters in service, it is proven that 22 veterans commit suicide on a daily basis based on their service, based on what they've gone through. And that number is astounding. 22 veterans a day from PTSD, from depression, from anxiety, from a just mixture of all of these emotions that they haven't developed the tools to work through. If you are a veteran, if you are an EMT, any person that served in any kind of line of service, there is a great organization out there. It's called BoulderCrestRetreat.org. Reach out. They offer awesome programs called PTG, which is post-traumatic growth. It teaches you coping skills. It teaches you how to...
What was that site one more time? I'm sorry.
It's BoulderCrestRetreat.org.
Thank
They
you.
are based out of Virginia and Arizona. I have been one of the luckiest people to be accepted to their program in November. I hope you guys are around because I will be talking about it, I'm sure, about the powerful things I've learned. So self-preservation is hardwired into each individual. Voltaire wrote on the death, I have to read this. Voltaire wrote of the death by suicide of the Roman orator Cato. It seems rather absurd to say that Cato slew himself through weakness. None but a strong man can surmount the most powerful instinct of nature, which is self-preservation. It takes someone in the deepest turmoil to get to that point of my existence means nothing. The people that I love would be better off. My thought process, I can break it down pretty easily because that thought process I've learned to battle. And so I know it intimately because I know how to turn it around on itself. My thought process when I was having very severe suicidal ideation, I was committed, I was made to be in isolation. I was in the psych ward where you couldn't leave. And I remember waking up and being so furious. And I remember screaming and I remember yelling at all of those nurses because there is no place I felt more isolated than in the psych ward. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Oh, they in trouble.
Sorry. Got a little distraction in the kitchen, but this is an important subject, so I want to make sure that I'm getting it across. Okay, another thing that Thomas Joyner points out in Myths About Suicide is habituation, which is a response decrement due to repeated stimulation. Simply putting it, it's getting used to something. So for me, it was getting used to that loop in my brain and constantly playing itself over and over again about how worthless I was based upon these things, based upon, oh, this happened to me, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. Why didn't I do anything? That makes me worthless. I'm never going to be better. I'm never going to beat this. I'm always going to be the person that everybody's going to walk all over. But let me tell you, I sit here today. I am 30 years old. I've made it through that part of my life and I am stronger. I am wiser. I am more understanding and patient. The love that I try to show others and when I receive it back is just that much more empowering. In my eyes, the only way the world is going to turn around is by kindness and love and asking that person, hey, are you doing okay? Hey, is there anything I can do for you? Hey, and the thing is you can't half-ass it, okay? If you're asking somebody, you have to be ready for the raw answer. And if you're not, you have to be willing to communicate that. If somebody's saying, hey, I'm having a really rough day, but your day is really rough and you know you can't take on anymore, you need to be able to stand up and tell your truth, which is, I understand that you're having a rough day, but I'm having a really hard one too. Maybe we can talk about this another day. How about we set a time aside this time and we can talk it through? It's very important to be honest with yourself, which is very hard for people that have the loop. That's what I'm going to keep referring it to, of this negative self-talk. You have to learn to battle that, which in itself is hard because those thought processes aren't something that you can regulate, so to speak. They just kind of happen, and then you're aware of them. And that's where you have to really take the time to get to know where that is happening and how to combat it. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm going to mute my. Sorry about that.
You're okay.
So it's very important for you to know that there is a way to battle that self-hate talk. And that is basically look at it from the perception of, if you wouldn't say that thing to the person that you love most in your life or that you look up to, don't say it to yourself. You catch yourself saying something bad, acknowledge the thought, okay? Acknowledge it, accept it. Don't deny it, because denying it is like pushing it away for it to come back later. Acknowledge it. Say, oh, there's the story of me being worthless. Okay, thanks for all the examples. And then you have to acknowledge it and let it go. It doesn't control you. You control your thoughts, you control your perception, you grow through it. It's such a powerful way to look through things. You have to take the time to stop that spiraling emotion, which is so overpowering. I know, Darian, you can relate to this, because there are those moments when your anxiety and your depression are just so overwhelming. You feel literally like they're crashing on top of you.
Yeah.
And there's just no way to get through it. But then one little thing, one tiny little thing will light up that dark just a
Yeah.
little bit, right? And then you hold on to that light. You hold on to that little bit of light, even if it's just somebody smiling at you. And that's why it's so important to love each other. God, I sound like a hippie, but I'm going to own that shit because it's so important. Take the time to care about humans.
Yeah.
Say it, bro.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I've been through that hippie life. Yeah. That's kind of how it is, you know. Like, it's literally just a hole that you fall into, and it's weird because one tiny act can just shove a ladder down that hole and help you climb out. And
One little thing, like one positive thing. You could read something that could just like really validate how you feel. And with my brother, I know music is a very validating thing for him, and he's introduced me to a lot of music that validates how I feel, which is helpful. Like, we do that for each other.
yeah,
We
can I
soundboard.
just say that nobody understands how I can turn on the TV and listen to music for like 3 hours, and like that's watching TV to me, you know? Because I think we talked about this on another podcast. I'm the type of person that, like, I think in pictures, you know? I think in uh,
Images.
a movie sense, you know? Like, if I hear a song, I literally create my own music video in my head that is applied to my life, you know? So music is a very important thing to me, and it helps me cope, and it helps me understand, and it helps me feel better. Shrimp, there you are, man. I knew you were going to be here. Thanks for coming.
I'm glad you're here, Shrimp. What's up? How's it going?
Kirsten said, I love the quote, the world is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react. And the fact that it means we have control. And that's very true. 100% very true. And
Absolutely.
sometimes you're in such a pit that you react in a very bad way. It goes both ways, you know.
It does.
That could be a very positive sentiment, or it could be a very negative sentiment, depending on how you're feeling that day.
A
And
very good example of this was this weekend, right?
mm,
Like the three of us together, I'm talking about my brother, my sister, and I. The three of us together, we have this bond that is like no other, simply because we've had not the easiest childhood. I'm not saying we had the worst by any means, because I know there have been people that have gone through far worse, but we did not have an easy life whatsoever.
mm,
We've had people out there that have always been there. We've had newer people that have helped us through journeys, and between you and me, like your knowledge and your ability to relate to me has helped me grow even more, because you look at things a little differently, and I love that counteractive view. Like, I'm sitting asking you questions because I'm not quite understanding how to process what I'm doing, and you're like, well, hey, look at it this way, and I'm like, holy, that's legit, I should have thought of that.
and I think a big part of that is growing up. There was obviously drug addicts. Drug addicts were a big part of our life, and people that we had no choice but to be around. And I was sheltered from a lot of that, and basically, until that was brought to light to me, it was kind of like oh, he's the little brother. You gotta hide him away from that, and then learning that there was like this whole world behind the scenes that I had no idea about. That was a huge reason for my anxiety and the depression that I have today. And I think a mix of that and how our mom was, it turned me into such like just an empathetic and sympathetic person. So it definitely makes me think a different way, because I don't know, I wasn't in the middle of it, but it still directly affected me. So it made me think about things a little bit different, and just, kind of try and understand what's happening beneath the surface.
Here's
So yeah.
something I don't know if you're aware about, and I'm going to tell you, and this might be the first time you're hearing it. I maybe should have given you a heads up, like, and talked to you offline about this, but
Uh-oh.
this is
Okay.
real. You remember John, right? Like your best friend when you
Yeah, you
were
told me about this. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So my first abuse as a child, I was very young. I can't really give you a approximate age, but it was actually my brother's friend's father. Um, he wasn't a great guy, I can tell you that. He was also happened to be my mom's drug dealer, so he was around. We lived pretty close to him for a while at one point. Um, and he sexually assaulted me at a very young age. I remember I kind of drew strength from that, only because I had some really powerful male figures in my life, and I must attribute to most of my ability to cope at such a young age to my Uncle Mickey. Um, Rest in peace, much love, always. He was the epitome of strength. He was the epitome of, oh, this bothers me for 2 seconds. Okay, it's gone. He had this ability to take his emotions and acknowledge them and just be like, okay, I felt like that for a minute, I'm gonna let that go. He he had this resiliency that I'm so envious of even to this day. um, I learned a lot from him as a man, as what a man should be, as what a father should be, as how a young girl should be treated. He was the dad I always wanted, and everything I thought I would find in a partner when I grew up, in all honesty. He was a great man. He was the one male role model that I had besides my grandfather, of course, that was just unprecedentedly important. So with that being said, I want to bring up a couple more myths about suicide, because I think it's very important that people, Kirsten, I love you so much. So much. I want you to know that. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. Okay, so getting used to pain, internal, external, injury, loss, becoming fearless of death is also a part of suicidal ideation. And I'm referring to it as suicidal ideation because it is a process. It takes a while to become acceptance of it. You may have this feeling of not wanting to be here, but it takes a certain step towards darkness that you can't ever get down, that you can't really understand unless you've been there. So I think it's a good point to bring this up. Perceived burdensomeness, a sense of low belongingness. So this was a big one for me, in all honesty. When I got back from Iraq, I moved away from my family. I was, an hour, which isn't that long, but I was an hour away from my sister, my brother, my mom, my then dad. I'm doing this because I love him, but he's disappointed me a lot. So I can only say dad in some soft sense. So perceived burdensomeness. I never communicated with my family what was going on besides my Uncle Mickey, the one really altering moment that I had in my relationship. And that, again, just built on top of what I already had felt before. It just validated those feelings of worthlessness, which is burdensomeness. Like I couldn't reach out to my sister or my brother because my brother at that point was still pretty young. My sister was older and she had her own life. She had her own kids and she had her own problems she had to go through. So I felt very isolated and I felt very burdensome if I were to bring this up to them. I remember reaching out to my mother at one point and telling her what happened, and her response was earth shattering for me. I called her and I told her what happened, and she said, "Go to sleep. Everything will be okay tomorrow." And that let me down on a level I can't explain. Doesn't make her a bad woman, but my mom had her own trials and tribulations to go through as when she was a young child growing up. I know that she was a victim of terrible, heinous things that it's not my place, it's not my story, but I know it was a part of her life as well.
Well,
This,
just
go ahead.
to give a little bit of backstory, our mom, I was about to say my mom, I don't know about your mom, but she had cerebral palsy and she was in leg braces for a large chunk of her younger life, and she dealt with bullying, a couple different forms of abuse, really, mentally, sexually, yeah, and
And
so
she's
yeah,
no older than 10, just so everybody knows that. She was a baby. She
yeah,
was a baby.
even to the point where she was about to leave this world. She always walked a little funny, and she always got weird looks and stuff like that, and she looked 45 when she was 35, and she was put through the ringer for sure, and she had a lot of her own demons. But yeah, I just wanted to elaborate.
She did. I mean, that's the truth. And her demons came out at certain times. She was not always the most loving person. She loved us. Do not question that. I can
She
tell you
loved us
that
to death.
wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
She
she
did.
loved us to death.
She had no way to show it. Her showing it was pawning us off on other people so she could deal with her addiction, her alcoholism, her whatever it is she was going through. She would isolate us. She would abandon us and then come back when she was ready to have us back.
She didn't
And
want
that
us to be
happened.
around it. Yeah.
Exactly. So she protected us by isolating us, which was, her decision. And I'm not going to go back and say whether that was the right or the wrong, because that's what she did. And I can't say that's, not something I would have done. I don't know. I mean, right now I feel like it could have been a possibility if I had taken that road, but I tried to take the opposite road. I tried to learn from the mistakes that I witnessed growing up. My mom had her first child at 16. She was 16. I can't even fathom having a child at 16.
Mm-hmm.
The responsibility, the straight stress of having an infant at 16 when you're still trying to figure out your own body, your own hormones, you're basically going through like puberty at that time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just had my first kid right before I turned 25. So yeah,
It's a
10
huge
years
learning.
before that. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
It isn't even fathomable for me either, because I was 21 when I had Noah, and at that point I'd already been through war, and I'm like, shit, I'm grown. Like I know the ugliness of the world. I've been through it. I think this is the man I want to spend the rest of my life with. We agreed we were going to try to have a baby, and we did. And let me tell you, he's beautiful and he is intelligent as all get out. Um, it has a lot to do with my parental isolation right now. I don't get to see him or talk to him, and that is not my choice, just so everybody's aware. Not my choice whatsoever. So, another thing I want to bring up is one of the other myths that Thomas Joyner points out in his book is that suicide is an act of anger, revenge, or aggression. So, it is proven that there are these certain personality types, and I'm going to refer to them as almost like a psychopath type. They have this very strong revenge side that they say, I'm going to do this to hurt this person. I'm going to end my life to make this person feel like shit. That is a lot less common than
Excuse
what
me.
you would think. The next one is suicide is selfish, a way to show excessive self-love. To me, that just blows my mind.
Agreed.
Excessive self-love, so you're going to end your life. That makes a lot of sense. Again, these are myths. I'm just pointing out the myths
Right.
I'm covering the vast thought processes that other people have had. Most people who die by suicide do not make future plans. That is a lie, purely because I can tell you that my suicide attempt happened on a whim. It
Yeah.
was. It
I was
really.
about to say that. Like, not to like interrupt you by any means, but my really bad. It. I've never had a suicide attempt. I hurt myself, and I contemplated it a lot. But my worst episode was, oh, Kirsten knows. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 in the morning or something like that. And I don't know. My life hasn't been terrible. I haven't been through anything crazy detrimental. I mean, I had father issues and all that stuff, and I hold it inside, and I don't let anybody see it, and then I just shit all over myself. That was
Internal
that
collapse.
was the wrong phrase to use, but
It's okay.
but yeah,
An internal collapse.
I hate on myself. Basically, I convinced myself about how stupid I am, and how I'm worthless, and how at the time I didn't deserve Kirsten, and I didn't deserve to have the opportunities that I had coming to me and things like that. And it was years of self-hate piled on top of each other. And I just broke down one night, and I woke Kirsten up in the middle of the night, and I was like, I'm scared. Take me to the hospital. I don't want to get to the point where I'm going to do anything. I need help. Take me to the hospital.
Can I just tell you how much strength and how much courage that takes? Because way to fucking go. Kudos to you, because to get to that point and to be able to ask for help is harder than anything. Harder than anything. Kirsten, I know you're watching. I love you so much. I love you so much. Thank you for being an endless support system for him. That is something beautiful. And I've only had that a very few times in my life. Brandon's not on here, but Brandon has always been my catchfall. In all honesty, he's been my best friend since I was 16. He's literally saved me and my brother from physical abuse from one of my mom's boyfriends.
Mm-hmm.
I remember calling him. He was 16. He had his driver's license. I did not. He was my best friend in high school. I called him one day because my mom's boyfriend got in my brother's face. I remember this so vividly.
Yeah.
And I stepped between my brother and this man. I'm maybe I had to be 16-ish because Brandon was driving and he was 15-ish.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm pretty sure you were 15.
I stepped between this grown-ass man who's 6'3" and my brother who's what,
Small.
12? You're 5 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So 10?
Yeah.
If I was 15, you were 10. So he was in my brother's face and he was screaming out at him about something so ridiculous.
Stupid.
And I was like, no, you are not. And my mom walked up the hill at that moment as I'm standing up for my brother who's standing behind me. And she ended up beating the shit out of me.
And you have to understand, my mom, like I said, she's a little lady.
But she is like fear itself. Like she
Yeah.
does this thing where she's talking to you with her teeth bite, you're done. You know you're done.
Yeah.
She was the kind of mom that like she grew up getting whoopings was fine, but her whoopings was like punching you in the face, punching you in the gut, throwing you down some stairs. And that's what she did. She threw me down the stairs on the trailer. She started hitting me. And at this point, I'm bigger than her. At this point, I kind of have an idea of who I am and my morals and my values and what I'm working towards. And I remember that's the first time ever in my life I've stood up to my mom. Like that was the time that I remember being stronger than her. And I remember taking her by her arms very gently, picking her up and putting her down about 3 feet away from me. And I was like, you are never going to hit me again, ever. Me and Darion are leaving. If you care, get rid of that piece of shit. If you don't, let me know when I can come home. And he better not be here. And then Brandon took me and Bubby and we went to the mall and ate Chinese food and had fun. And he's always been the person that's been there to save us.
Yeah.
He never judged because our living situations growing up, and this is just leading up to the whole like how much it takes to get to that point of like just downing yourself nonstop. Because I'm not saying that people that come from luxurious lives do not face the same sort of mental anguish or the same sort of like abuse or neglect or
Behind closed doors.
right. It's all your own life. I'm just telling you my story, my own perception of my struggles. We lived in places that should have been condemned. We lived in a place that had a hole in the kitchen floor, like literally a hole. We
You
knew it
could
was
see
there.
the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to walk around it. In this same place, there were no door knobs on our doors. We would stuff rags in the hole during the front door. In the wintertime, we hardly ever had electricity because that just wasn't something that we had money for. So we had this kerosene heater, which we plugged in to an extension cord running from our neighbor's house into the living room. And we would split it off and plug in the TV or the radio. It was more than likely the radio because Mom always loved music. She was a big fan of music, and Michael Bublé, she loved him. So I remember specifically one memory, and I don't know if you were there for it or not, Bubby, but if you remember, chime in because it was a beautiful memory.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite memories of Brandon and Mom. So it's really cold. We have the kerosene heater going. We have that blue box, that really old school MP3 player boom box I had with the blue front face.
Mm-hmm.
We had it plugged in and we were listening to Michael Bublé, and it was like around Christmas time. So we had the Christmas album going, and Brandon got up and walked up to Mom and like took her hand and danced with her in the living room. Like it was one of my all-time favorite memories in the whole world. It was very impactful when my mom passed away, because we do have these beautiful segments of memories when she would be clean or she would be without her medication, because she was an avid abuser of prescription medication constantly. It was a struggle her whole life, but she was in constant pain. She had, on top of cerebral palsy, she had epilepsy, she had MS. She was deteriorating rather fastly, and that was something that we were dealing with. We never imagined her passing away when she did. It's a hard thing to process. I recently, just last night actually, was reading some of her journals that she would write randomly in books, and she would make them out to her kids. And I found one that was pretty awesome, where she wrote for me, Amber, and Darion. She even wrote poetry. I never knew that until I read that last night. Not gonna lie, I cried my eyes out reading this poem.
Yeah,
It was powerful.
I never knew that she wrote poetry. It makes you
It
see
was-
her in a different light, don't it?
It does. And some of the words, like she would write about not wanting to live anymore. And then there would be the next entry would be like, I'm starting therapy. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for the kids. I'm gonna be better. she wanted so much to be better, and she just never had the tools, and she never had the consistency. She would get this hope, and then she would let it die. And that's what I don't want anyone else to go through. If you have that hope, hope is the strongest, most life-altering emotion.
And I will say
Hope.
for her, it didn't help that we moved around a lot. We got kicked out of a lot of places, and um, before high school, like it was almost as if I was in a different school every grade, and um,
When I joined the Army, I had to do the background check, and I had to verify each address that we lived at.
that's a
By the
doozy.
time I was 17, let me tell you, by the time I was 17, I had went to 18 different schools and lived in 22 different places. And I had to
Yeah.
verify each one of them in order to obtain my secret clearance for the Army in order to work my MOS. It's flabbergasting when you have that information in front of you and you're like, holy shit, this is like literally since I moved more times than I was alive at that point.
And it
More
was
years than I
normal
was
to
alive.
us. It was
Right.
so normal. It was a yearly thing, or even a bi-yearly thing. Um, yeah.
I feel like it contributed to a lot of my inability to connect with people immediately. It takes me
Agreed.
a really long time. I'm very awkward around people I don't know. I'm very
I,
reserved.
I suck at relationships. I suck making friends because like I leech on so quickly. Like if I like you, I'm going to like obsess over our friendship together just because
Like,
I'm
let's
used to it
do it.
lasting like that long. So I'm like I'm gonna make this a great friendship for as long as I got it, you know.
I ain't losing you. Come on, I'm gonna reel you in with all the good stuff, and then like 10 years down the road, you can know about all the bad stuff.
And now that I've known people for longer than a year, like it scares people off. I've lost so many friends, not even funny.
It's hard. It's hard to make the connection simply because we never had that longevity. Amber is the only person that has this personality that she radiates. Like, she's like fucking sunshine, and I don't know how she does it.
Because
It's
she
like
was taking care of us. She was so distracted by taking care of us that she didn't have time for friends. She had to come straight home and make sure that we were okay. B,
she did. She grew that friendship with Shorty, and
yeah,
Sasha, and like they're still close. They still talk. I mean, it's not as often as she wishes, but she's still able to bond with people rather quickly and like have those I hate to say it this way, but those like meaningless fun conversations
yeah,
that don't mean it. Small talk. I don't do
right.
small talk at all. I'm not a small talker. I suck at it, actually.
I do
I can tell you a
humor.
dad joke. Yeah, I can tell you a dad joke. Like, that's what I
Like
got.
that's how I communicate is humor. If I can make you
Right.
laugh, then I know I'm aces. B said, when did you notice that moving that often wasn't normal? And I'd have to say, when I moved to uh, high school, where I met Kirsten, and I was there from 7th grade up until 12th grade, and that was the longest we've ever been in one spot. And you know, being to move to high school with friends that I've already known, and uh, just getting to know someone for an amount of time where it was comfortable, where we actually got to know each other, and it wasn't just I need a friend, so let's be friends quick, you know? Like I don't want to be bored, so let's hang out. It was more of like an actual relationship, and that was one of the times where I realized, like, holy shit, man, I've never had relationships like I have right now, um, except for with my sisters. Because to be real, my sisters are more of like friends. Well, they're obviously still sisters, but they're way more friends than they are family. And now I kind of view it the exact opposite. Like I have so many uh, friends that I consider family because I've known them for so long and I've got to know them, to where like that's what family was to me. You know somebody for an extended period of time and you still accept each other's flaws. Like that's family right there. So that was one of the times that I've noticed that. And then Shrimp goes on to say, I usually ask the same questions every day, like, been busy. Oh, it's not a question. I usually ask the same questions every day, like, been busy. I'm bad at small talk. Yeah. And
Small
that's
talk is terrible.
yeah,
I hate
and
it.
that's a lot of what I do. Like if I want to hang out with somebody, it's always like a, "What's up?
I can't
What are you
do
doing
that. Like,
today? You know, are you free?"
I'm pretty blunt and honest, and I found that to be the easiest way because I can't lead up to something, because if I'm leading up to it, it's giving me a chance to back out. And I'm either going to make a decision on the fly and be like, do it now. If you don't come, it's done. It's not happening. Or I have to plan it, and then normally I'll back out, because then I have so much time to consider it, and I'm like feeling super vulnerable, and I'm like, I don't know how close I want to become to somebody, and I'm like really wishy-washy. It's still really hard for me to form legitimate connections.
Hmm.
Um, Brian, who's the one that actually asked when did we notice that it was different, or
Right.
if it
I
was
said
awkward
B.
moving around.
Yeah, I said B.
So
It wasn't B.
for me, it's always been a very normal thing. Living in this house is actually, I think, pretty close to the longest place I've ever lived, in all honesty. I've had it since November of 2018, and it's July 2020. I mean, that's an extravagant amount of time for me.
Yeah.
It's one place I've rooted into, and I'm constantly making changes because I have this constant need for improvement, and it's almost overwhelming because if I feel stagnant for too long, like my voice is, this sounds like I'm psychopathic, but it's not. It's legit. I look at my depression and my anxiety as a whole different entity of me. It's my therapist actually gave me this brilliant idea of looking at it as the Mucinex monster. So I have this like boogie kind of creature inside my brain that says all these terrible things, and I have to realize that it's not me. It's this depression, anxiety. It's this imbalance that I have. It's this lifelong of feeling worthless. So I have to disconnect who I am from that entity and move past it. So her giving me a way to look at it in a way that it's not who I am, but it's a part of who I am,
Hmm.
and I can separate it, helped me tremendously.
And
Um,
and I'll tell you, Kirsten can definitely tell you this because I've told her on multiple occasions. I tell her like I feel like there's two people in my head and they're fighting a fucking battle, you know.
the
And
light and the dark.
yeah, and for such a long time, like the light would just like kind of just cower back here, and the dark would just
Hmm.
take over everything else, you know. And that was the kind of like self-image that I had. Like I'm a bad person. I think bad thoughts, you know. I'm dumb. I ain't that smart. It's hard for me to have friends, you know. Like, and if I do, I don't deserve the ones that I have. And if they say that they can't hang out today, then that means that they never want to see me again and all that stuff. It's that mix of depression and anxiety that really kicks your ass.
It really does, because you self-hate talk. Self-hate talk is so powerful. But again, this is when I'm going to preach this, because this is about growth. These podcasts are meant to acknowledge the issues that we're going through, but also to give you ways of dealing with them. So again, I'm going to repeat it. If there is something that you are saying to yourself in your brain over and over again, that you wouldn't say to the person that you cherish most in your life, whether it be a parent, a grandparent, a child, a cousin, a niece, a nephew, any of those people that you love and care about genuinely, do not for a second think it is okay to say those things to yourself. It is not, because you are worthy, you are valuable, your opinions matter, you have things to teach people, because every story is so different. And every perspective that you can learn from makes you stronger and more empathetic, and it makes you able to cope. I look forward to this. Like, I've not had the best 2 days, I'll be honest. I've had a really shitty 2 days. I told my brother on the way home yesterday, we were talking on a different platform. I'm like, I need to talk to you. Like, I need to get some stuff off my chest. Will you talk to me for a minute? He talked to me my whole way home, which was a 2 fucking hour drive. And I was spiraling. I was spiraling, but only so far, because he was playing my light in that instance, because like my darkness was so loud, and I needed someone else to help me combat it. It is important to have a support system. It is important to have people that you can count on. And if you don't, I highly suggest reaching out to different groups. Go.
I have a question because I've felt like this very often in my life. what if you don't have a support system? And even if you do, what if you feel like you can't trust your support system? Like, what if, like, me talking about the two different voices in my head makes me nervous to bring it up to anyone? I mean, like, for me, that was a big step to admit it to Kirsten. What if I didn't feel as close to her as I was, and I felt like there wasn't anybody else that I could talk to?
Absolutely, that's a very valid question. So if you are not comfortable with speaking to someone else, I recommend writing it down and kind of getting it out on paper and reading it can be very rewarding. It can give you a stepping stone of what you're trying to get out of it. Say you're going through, I'm going to use myself as an example because I know who I am. So during my darkest times, I wrote a lot of poetry. I wrote about the darkness and about how I have a specific poem. It's called The Darkness is a Siren. A siren meaning the mythological creature that calls out to you and then sucks you into death, basically. And my poem was about combating this siren that constantly called out to me because I just wanted to I wanted to end it all. But I wanted to fight it. I wanted to show that I am capable of fighting something so dark because I myself I'm luminary. I have a way of communicating and understanding people's emotions and thought processes. I can step back and listen. And that's important. That's a very important thing. Active listening, which a lot of people do not practice, which is very important, is listening to what someone has to say and then basically retelling it to them the way you heard it. It's a good way to wrinkle out anything you don't understand and also make sure that you're getting the message that they're trying to deliver.
Okay.
So I try to be a part of that.
Got some comments here. Brian says, and I asked you because I also wanted to touch on it slightly because I learned a little bit about coping mechanisms when I was in the hospital. He said, I would think if you can't trust your support system, it's not really a support system. And they kind of showed me in the hospital that if you feel like you don't have a support system, and even if you actually don't have a support system, then be your own support system. And that's something that I never really thought of before. Like, for a long time, I thought, like, I can't do this alone. And it is true that you will need help throughout your journey to get better. But as far as I understood it, like, I can't do this alone. I can't deal with how I feel by myself. And I had a paper set aside, but I decided to leave it in the journal because I didn't think it would really come up in this podcast. But they do, because just so y'all know, these are all the papers that I got from when I was in the hospital, and they're all affirmations and informational packets. And I have some more resources from when I was in therapy, so if you need anything, let me know. But a lot of it was like, find what you think is good about you and latch onto it. Like,
a good starting point for that would be writing down morals and values, like what you find important in other people, like the things that you feel like you connect with on other people. Write those things down. And then, like, Darion, say what you said to me yesterday when we were talking about love and how to turn it around. You said something. I'm gonna, like, spitball it and
start it off, and I'm sure it'll come back to me.
So we were talking about how to challenge ourselves to show love as we receive it, because that's something that's very hard for us to be conscious about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we were talking yesterday, again, I was having a really bad day, and I'm like, I feel like this person deserves so much recognition, and I don't know how to give it. I don't know how to love the way normal people love. My love is awkward and different, and I try to do the best I can with my own explanations, but my voice is only worth so much. My stepdad, Chris, always said actions speak louder than words. That goes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I ain't gonna sound as poetic as I did when it was just me and you talking, because now we're in front of people. But I basically said, like, I struggled with that a lot. throughout mine and Kirsten's relationship. I mean, me and her moved halfway across the country based on a school that I wanted to go to, and she decided that she was going to come with me and support me, and that was huge for me, and I felt like I didn't deserve that amount of sacrifice. So I took it upon myself every day to give her what she gave to me and make sure that she always felt like she had a support system from me. This isn't obviously this isn't an exact quote or anything, but it was all about just seeing how she made me feel and trying my best to work at myself until I was able to reciprocate and reflect those feelings back to her and make sure that she has a comfortable life with me. And I mean, everything we're talking about today, it's all steps. It's all small snippets of situations, because you've had revelations, I've had revelations, and there's been times where we fall back into that pit, and that was just a step. It was a step. It was something for me to focus on. It was something that I felt like I owed her, and it was just something that I felt like I had to do.
I want you to know I got goosebumps right now because the love and the commitment that speaks in your relationship is powerful. That ability to communicate and challenge yourself to return the love that she's giving you to the best of your ability, that speaks volumes to your commitment.
Here it is. Here's the point. If somebody's going to spend their time, spend their life, spend 5 seconds trying to help you through something, and you feel like you can't reciprocate it, and they're still there, even if you feel that way, then you have more than enough time to learn how to reciprocate it.
Hell yeah. Quote
Work on
that.
yourself.
Write that out.
Work
Boom.
on yourself.
That's right, because you may be in the bottom of the barrel right now. You may not feel like there is any up. You may feel like your up is down. I get that. I can relate to that feeling. And it may not be to the extent of you feeling it. I only know how it felt when I did.
Mm-hmm.
And
And you know
every
how it
person,
made you feel when they did that. Yeah.
right. It's very important to have at least one person that you can count on, whether that be a parent, whether that be a friend, whether that be a brother, a sister. My brother and my excuse me, like emotions make me stutter sometimes. My brother and my relationship has improved tenfold since we started doing this. I used to view us as two opposite people, but in all reality, we are on the same brave wave. It's just we kind of
We see things
get to the
differently.
same conclusion a little differently.
Yeah.
But we have this ability to communicate with each other, to express ideas without putting each others ideas down, and that's important. You have to have somebody that you can soundboard with, have conversations with, but draw an ultimate conclusion. Brian, you are somebody that I count on for that, and I know that you're watching, and your support and your honesty today, I appreciate it so much, and I want you to know that, because I read somewhere I'm really sorry.
Take your
I have
time.
a tendency to relate to people that are going through some sort of mental distress. I seem to like draw to those people because I can see it in myself and I see it in them, and I want to pacify or at least give them some of my knowledge.
Hmm.
So I've had this now quote that I use when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I know someone else has their own mental anguish they may be experiencing. I make it a point to ask, hey, I'm having a really rough time and I want to see if you can handle what I have to talk about. It's pretty powerful and it may be very long, but I really need somebody to listen to me. And that right there is showing that person respect. It's showing them your commitment to them feeling better as well. And it's also communicating just rawly, which is important. You have to be very open and be very aware of how your thought processes and your spiraling can affect other people.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I think is important to note is if you do have depression or anxiety or both, and this was something that took me a long time to kind of realize, is that it eschews your view of the world, and you have to kind of understand that the world is not what your chemicals in your brain makes it seem like. It's funny because I'm doing these mental health Mondays, and last Friday I just did like a Black Lives Matter podcast and stuff like that, and I'm usually not the person to raise my voice by any means, but I think last summer, right after our daughter was born, was probably the hardest time in my life for my personal mental illness. And after, kind of coming out of that, it showed me that, like, it's not that the world isn't against me. It's not. And that was something that I really struggled with, because I always felt like I have the worst luck in the world, you know? I was brought up underneath these people, and, I never had these opportunities in my life like other people do, and I always felt like I had a looming shadow over me that was just bad luck that would follow me everywhere I go, and no matter what I tried, it would always ruin everything that I did. And it was the reason why I couldn't have good friendships and good relationships, and it was the reason why it was so hard to take care of my daughter and all those things. And coming out of that, it brought to light the proudness that I have for my beliefs and my personality, and it helped me give value to what I think of myself, and it made me want to stand up for things that I believe in, which I never had the strength to do. I was bullied in high school because I would never stand up to anybody that pushed me around. I would let myself get pushed around. I would let myself get punched in the back of the head because I felt like that's what I deserved. And it took me 25 years to get to the point where I'm like, no, fuck that. I have a voice. I have things to say, and I can't wait to show it to people. And I gotta tell you, the relationships that are still with me today and the person that I am today is so much better. Like, my perception of the world is so different than it was just a year ago, just because I realized how valuable it is to me. And it took me having a daughter to see that, and it took me seeing in my wife's eyes that she needed change and she needed somebody to step up. And I'm so glad that I'm comfortable to where I'm streaming podcasts now where I just talk about my opinions for an hour and a half. That is something that I've never been able to do.
That's right.
I've never been able to do stuff like that because I didn't think I was worth having my voice be heard. And I feel more powerful now than I've ever felt in my entire life. And, like, I don't know. Like, I know anxiety is still a huge part of my life. But depression, I haven't felt that in a long time. And it's because I gave myself time. I went to see a therapist. I was in the hospital for a while based on suicidal thoughts. I had a daughter that needed me and needed me to step up and be the best person that I could be. And that I did that internally. And so there is a big part of it where you do need a support system. And that could either mean somebody needs to kick you in the ass and tell you, like, hey, get the fuck up, let's do this. Or it could be someone that tells you it's okay. But the important thing is the journey happens internally. People can guide you in the right direction, but the only reason that you're going to get there is if you decide that you want to get there. And my life is 1,000% different than it was a year ago, than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was 5 and I didn't even understand how emotions worked. Like, it's so big to be able to step up to the shadows in your head and say, nah, I run this shit. And that's what you need to do, is you need to step up and say, no, I run this shit. I'm
And it
not
is
worthless. I do not want to die. And that's the thing is most people that suffer from suicidal thoughts, they don't want to die. They just think that they're worth dying. And you gotta find that light, you know. And like I said, somebody can give it to you by being hard as fuck on you, or they could give it to you by being your best fucking friend. Go ahead.
perceived burdensomeness is what Darian is referring to. The perceived burdensomeness, the feeling of not being worthy of anyone. I
Love you
want you
too,
to
baby.
know, I want you to know, everyone watching this, you are worth something. The stream has the suicide hotline number streaming. If you get to that point where you're feeling that low, call that number. If you don't feel comfortable talking on the phone about it, text. I know it's really hard to actually reach out for help. I know it's really hard to take that first step, but I promise you, if you take that first step, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And I
Yeah.
tell you, it's not going to be easy. You may take 5 steps forward and get fucking thrown back 10 steps, but it does get easier. You build up this resilience, you build up your self-worth, you really start to look at who you are as an individual. And that's what he's talking about, that realization that I have all these responsibilities and I have to man up. And I use man up as a very loose term, and I don't mean it in a sexual way. It's just what
You gotta
people
buck
say.
up. You gotta buck
Buck
up.
up. All right, you got to buck up. All right. Because I know I have been at the bottom of the barrel. I have been there and I have felt those feelings of worthlessness. I have recorded it because I knew in that moment I was going to change. I knew in that moment when I'm like, if I don't fucking do something, if I don't stop, and if I don't ask for help, like, I'm not going to make it through this. I need help. Someone fucking help me.
Yeah.
That video at the beginning of that podcast, at this podcast, was real. That was sent to my sister when I was literally having one of the worst days where my suicidal thoughts were just berating inside my head, where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to feel worthless. I don't want to feel like I'm letting my boys down. I don't want to feel like I'm letting down all my people that I love. And if I just wasn't here, they wouldn't have to worry about me being here because, God, if I'm not here, that solves that problem. That solves that worry. You don't have to worry about me if I'm not here. Fuck, I'm gone. Who cares?
And I
But
can't
that's
fuck
not
up if I'm
true.
not here. Yeah, yeah.
That is
And
not true.
I do want to say another resource, and I just want to say this because I've been talking about it, is a lot of hospitals, they do have a partial hospitalization program where you go in there and you tell them that you're having a tough time, and you come in, how often was it, babe? It was like, I think
Once
it
a
was
week.
just once a week. Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
like every Saturday for like 5 weeks. And I'll tell you what, I was the only like 20 to 30 age person in there, and I was the only guy in there. Like it actually almost broke my heart because everybody else in that class was over 50 and they were all women. And it broke my heart, and it did kind of put a lot of things into perspective. And I'll tell you what, I still talk to some of those ladies today. I'm friends with them all on Facebook, and we talk and we check up on each other, and it's a really great resource. Like I said, I took it as a joke for the first couple times I went there. I didn't talk for the first couple times I went there. I got all
Look at
this
that.
from there, and I'll tell you what, those ladies ended up loving me and did not. We all cried on the last day of our class together. Because we just got that close, and it was that shared support system that we all had, and we knew that there was no judgment there. And we ate lunch together every Saturday, and we even met at McDonald's a couple times. And
It's that understanding of being where you're at. It's that
yeah.
people that really get it. It's important to have people that really understand your own struggles, because not everybody's struggles are the same.
Kirsten corrected me a little bit. She said mine was 5 days a week for 2 weeks, then 2 days for a month more, only because I was in the ER for Suicide Watch. So they did keep me on extended time, but that's because I admitted myself into Suicide Watch, and I had like my evaluation and stuff like that. And then she goes on to say, I appreciate so much how how much you push your comfort zone and fight your anxiety for me and Ellie, my daughter. I've seen you guys I've seen you grow as a person, and you're the most amazing father because you choose to grow and make yourself better.
Whoop whoop! I'm giving you claps for that because you damn straight. Let me tell you, I told my brother yesterday, he is the parent I want to see myself become because he is a phenomenal. Like there aren't enough positive words that I could tell you how great of a dad that you are. You inspire me. You
But it wasn't always that way. It wasn't the first like 4 or 5 months of her life. I was a wreck, and I
because
was her main caretaker. You know, like Kirsten was back at work. It was me by myself, and I know you've gotten a couple messages of me just bawling, saying like, I need help. Can you please come out today? Like, can you please help me? You know, and I know at some points, like Amber and Richard both like went off on me saying like, you need to help yourself, and that hurt my feelings so much at the time. And now that I have this newfound perspective, I needed that, and that was part of the kick in the ass that I needed.
absolutely.
So I'm the kind of person that always takes stuff to heart, and if you are too, just you know, find
It's hard to change that.
try and see it from a different perspective, because everybody has different stuff going on, and if you're an adult, somebody can't always watch over you. It's hard to ask that out of somebody, but they still love the fuck out of you. They still care about you so much, and they want you to get better. It's just something that you got to do. They can guide you, but again, like the first step is yours to take. So.
And you have to want it. You have to want it. And
And
I know
there was a
that's the
long
hardest
time that I
part,
didn't want it. There was a
right? You
long
just want
time
to
that I didn't
feel
think I
that.
was worth the work. There was a long time that I didn't think that I was ever going to get better. And
It's so much easier to not try, right? It's so much easier to just be like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just going to stay right here.
it's so
Whatever the
much easier to
consequences
sleep half the day, every day. Yeah.
and cry
Yep.
and just wallow. It takes a strong person to realize that, hey, I'm doing the same thing every fucking day and it's not getting me anywhere. And for me, my own personal experience, I had attempted suicide before that. My last suicide attempt I had attempted before that and ended up in the psych ward at a hospital. I swore after that I'd never try it again. And long and behold, I had not healed. I had not accepted my past and learned from it. I buried it still. I, I, I I'm not going to attribute it to my therapist at the time, but he was a male, and so I wasn't quite comfortable divulging all of my sexual traumas to a male. That was very hard for me to speak. Even till this day, I'll be honest, I cannot have a male therapist. I cannot have a male OBGYN. I struggle going to urgent care if it is a male doctor. I the last time I went is because I had the flu and I
And
was
I don't,
shaking bad.
yeah. And I don't want to disrupt from your point. I want you to continue. But I kind of have the same thing where I would prefer my therapist to be female because, I was raised with my two sisters and my mom, and those were the only consistent people in my life. And like I vibe well better with girls than I do guys. I mean, and don't be afraid to ask for that if that's something that you want. People understand, they get it, because everybody's situation is different. And yeah, I just wanted to say that.
And that's a
Ask
legitimate
for
point.
it.
I went to the urgent care because I had the flu, and I had two men in that door in the tiny little room with me, and I was shaking so bad, and the main physician was like, "Are you okay? Do you normally shake like this?" And I'm like, "I'm really uncomfortable. There are two of you. You're both standing in front of the door. Can somebody please, like, I can't be in the corner, and I feel trapped, and I need you. I like I'm it's a real emotional reaction for me. It's scary. It puts me on alert, and my anxiety is high, and I feel uncomfortable. And so it's very important to always be honest. Tell your truth. Don't hold back. If something bothers you, if something is uncomfortable, make it a point to tell them that. Say, hey, I've had, you don't have to get into details. You don't. You can say, hey, I had a really bad time with a man and I can't be in a room by myself with a man. I prefer if there is a man, fine, but can I have a woman in there with me?
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to say what you need, because in those moments when you are your most vulnerable and you're reaching out for help, you need to be heard. You need to be heard wholeheartedly. And that takes courage and that's hard. But in those moments where you ask, you get empowered every time you get that little bit of what you needed. It's empowering. And then you'll realize that next time it's not going to be so hard.
Right. Yeah, and I'll say my personal experience with my therapist. I think our first 2 sessions, I barely said a damn thing, and it took a little bit of warming up. But by the time I had like my last session, which I didn't even want to be my last session, it was just we were changing insurance, and that's whatever. But like she knew so much about me that I didn't even know about myself, and it was so easy to open up to her and tell her everything that I was feeling and what happened that day to make me come in and whatever mood that I was in. And we shared YouTube links, and I even showed her some music, like, because she knew that that's kind of how I communicated and stuff like that. So just have faith that if you're seeking help, that those people want the best for you. It's their job to want the best for you.
But it's also their passion.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
It's not
something that
about
they studied a long time for. Yeah.
right. It takes a special kind of person to be a therapist. It takes a special kind of person to want to help people. Um, if you haven't, I'm going to throw this out there. For me, this was very helpful for myself. There is a personality test you can take. It's at 16personalities.com. It kind of gives you a breakdown of your strong points and your weak points, and that may give you a starting point as to, oh my gosh, I can really relate to this. Like, I can see this is where some way I might need to improve. It also matches you up with like career paths that you might enjoy based on your personality type. I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I probably don't come off that way, especially when I'm with my family. I am extra as hell. My brother can
She
attest to that.
is, yes. I
Like,
can definitely say for positivity that
like when I'm with my family, we have this comfortability because we've been
we've
in
been through it
poverty.
all. Yeah.
We have. We've gone to school disgusting. We've had teachers tell us that we smell bad.
I
We've
used to have a
gone.
rash because I didn't shower enough because it was just something that wasn't readily available to us.
It wasn't. Our life was by no means easy, but it doesn't mean that just because you come from where you've come from, that's your path. You can break the cycle. My brother is a perfect example of breaking the cycle. My sister is a perfect example of breaking the cycle. I am in the middle of breaking my cycle with my mom. Mine's a little difficult because our relationship was very complex. It wasn't very cut and dry. I withdrew a lot from her because I knew that's not what I wanted. And by withdrawing from her, I withdrew from everyone else. And that kind of isolated me and left me on this island alone where I was trying to figure out who exactly I am after coming home from a war when I was only 18, which is still a child. And then you have the army making all your decisions, and then all of a sudden you're an adult and you have a child and you have to make all these decisions, and you have a husband, and this husband isn't the best husband to you. He puts you down and
Emotionally abusive.
physically abusive.
Well, yeah, but
It
what we were
was
talking about, yeah.
it was again just it was validating of how I already felt about myself growing up in the way that I did, and being through the things I did, and reaching out to my mom when these detrimental things happened, and her being like, I don't believe you. You're still going to go over there. You're still going to go get sugar from this person. And I would go over there and it would happen again and it would happen again. And it built this wall between my mom and myself. But I can tell you, since her passing in 2017, I've grown and I have forgiven her and I love her and I understand her more because I think out of the three of us, in all honesty, I've probably followed more of her path than I meant to, even though my intention was to go to the complete opposite. But long and behold, I was put through the same ringer that she was. And now I can honestly read her journals and relate more to the trauma and the hardship that she went through. And I can tell you she was fucking strong.
Yeah. Brian said, "No way I could do a female therapist. Also, my therapist was quite forceful about me doing the talking. Let them know. Let the receptionist know. Tell them that you need to change therapists. I'll tell you, at the therapist office that I was at, the receptionist knew the personalities of every therapist in there. Kirsten's therapist was a bubbly, like, go hung, like, every day is a great day, you know, and that's the kind of person that Kirsten liked talking to. And I will say, for a while, Brian, my therapist was the exact same way. There was a lot of, like, her staring at me for a couple minutes, waiting for me to say something, and I felt like I had to. But you also have to understand that once you open up that door a little bit, it helps a lot, and you'll end up, like, kicking that door open. I'm sure I'm guessing, didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. It just wasn't quite the right fit. So if you're still doing that, which you might not be, but if you are, I would definitely talk to the receptionist or talk to whoever, you know, got you there in the first place, and they would make adjustments accordingly to make sure that you feel comfortable, because there's no use going to a therapist that you feel like's not helping you. That's a waste of your money, you know.
You know personally what I went through, because once my original therapist went off to West Virginia to continue her what is it called, thesis, basically her studying, I was paired with a bubbly, like, I'm not even kidding, this woman was the epitome of bubbly, happy, like,
I can't do it.
no, like, I walked in there and she was smiling, and then she asked me how I felt and she tried to give me a blanket, and I'm like, lady, this is the first time I'm meeting you. You're in my space. Like, I don't want you to touch me with your I don't know where that blanket's been, and that's no offense to you, but, like, how many people have cried in this thing? How much snot is on this? I don't know, but, like, I'm uncomfortable already.
Everybody needs something different, yeah.
I know, it's weird because her room was very vibrant and, like, it was, like, almost child welcoming, and I felt so uncomfortable because my mood didn't match my surroundings. My insides were not reflected on who I was talking to. Like, she wasn't I won't say she wasn't empathetic, because she was. It was apparent, but she was too, what's the word I'm looking for? She was just so extra. Like, she was like sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and, like, let's go to La La Land, it's gonna be fine. And I'm like, that's not what I need. That doesn't work for me. That's not life.
Yeah.
Maybe you're trying to talk to a certain type of people.
Right. Kirsten said, I highly recommend therapy. Therapy should be a normalized idea. Everyone should have one, just to feel like you have a support. And that's another way to get a support system. It really is. Because once a therapist gets to know you, they're going to root you on. They're going to tell you to go for it when you need to go for it. They're going to encourage you. And I miss her still. Like, she was honestly a friend by the end. And I'll tell you how I knew that I was getting more comfortable with her. It's because when I first went in there, I sat in the corner of the couch. And by the time I left, I was right in the center of that couch. No pillows on my lap. I'm sitting forward, you know? Like, let's do this. Let's talk. Yeah. Let's work through this, because I'm confused. You got answers. Let's do it. Let's figure this out.
I love that, because that really does show, like my therapist now, I'm not going to name her out loud because I feel like that's a confidentiality thing.
Agreed.
She is this in between of the therapist I had before and then the extreme therapist I had after. She is this beautiful, although I'm going to tell you right now, like, we have different views on things, but the way she encourages, the way she listens, and then she is also an active listener. So whatever I say to her, she says it back to me, and she's like, okay, so I see this is where you're having this issue. Let's talk about that some more. And then she encourages me when it comes to the boys, because anybody who's watching this, I'm going to tell you right now, struggling being an isolated parent is extremely hard to not be able to have open communication with your children. I watched my 4-year-old have a epic meltdown from missing his brother so much on Sunday. It literally it it has lasted until today, and doing this and talking
You're all right. Take your time. Take your time.
it is taking me a few days to get through it, but it hasn't been so detrimental to where I feel like there is no light, because there is light. Because I'm always kind and I'm always respectful, and I think that is what the world needs, is for people to be a little more understanding.
And I do want to say, like I say every stream, this is a complete open forum. We encourage you guys to talk. And I hope after maybe a couple more weeks of this, we'll be able to actually bring you guys in and have you right here next to us and be able to talk, whoever feels comfortable with it. I would love to do that, because this is like a therapy to me. It really is. This helps me out. I get to talk about stuff that I don't even think about most of the time. And then after I get done talking about it and I didn't even realize that it was a problem, I feel a weight lifted off my shoulders. It really is something good. And if you don't have a support system, I'll be your support system. Bring it on. J Pro says, I'll second that opinion. I don't go regularly anymore, but my original still checks in once a year and helps me find one wherever I've lived to have another resource. That's fantastic, man. And that's what it's about. They care about you. They do. They want to make sure that you're okay. And they want to make sure that you have the resources that they have.
As much as they are yours.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. It's a give and take relationship. It takes a special individual to be a therapist. I'm again going to point it out for anybody that's on the stream right now. You can see on the screen, the suicide hotline is up there. If you are struggling with suicidal ideation, please reach out. If you don't feel comfortable talking on the phone, you can text. I cannot tell you how much these lines mean to me. I wish I would have had the courage to reach out in one aspect or the other. If you are struggling with these thoughts, if they are berating you, if you are feeling down on yourself and you really desperately need somebody to talk to them. I have used it a couple times in the more in more less stressful events in my life, where I just really needed to get some things off my chest and I needed somebody to soundboard with when I didn't have the support system I have now. They're helpful. They will listen. It is a beautiful and almost like secretive and comforting way that they don't know you. They don't know what you look like. They don't care what you look like. You're literally talking to somebody who the hell knows where. And they're just going to validate you. They're going to build you up enough to get you through that hard day. And they're there 24/7. Reach out. Reach out. Please reach out.
They're going to help you understand why you feel the way that you feel. And that's important information.
It absolutely is. And you've probably heard this phrase before, but suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that is more true than I can tell you. As cliche and as therapist like that sounds, think about that. Think about it. You may be having one bad day, but it doesn't mean every day is going to be bad.
Right.
If you reflect back on your life, I know there have been plenty of bad days, but there have got to be days of sunshine and light in there. The darkness only lasts so long, and if you need some light, I'm willing to I will read you poetry. I will dance for you. I don't care. Like, you need help, I'm here. Reach out. Please know that suicide's not the answer. Join our community, watch our streams, throw in your comments. If you have good resources that you think that are relatable to what we're talking about, throw them in the comments, share your knowledge, because conversations is how we're going to change the world, everybody. Conversations.
Agreed.
Start speaking.
Kirsten asked, what do you do when you think nobody will get it, especially in regards to therapists? They don't know me. How are they going to help me? And I have a feeling she's asking that because I had an issue with that. I was very skeptical about going to a therapist the first time I did. And give it a chance. Give it a chance. Give it one session. Give it 2 sessions. I mean, hell, if 2 sessions go pretty well, give it 3 sessions, and you might find yourself like getting more comfortable with being like, okay, you don't have to know exactly what I'm going through, but you can understand how I feel about it. You can help me deal with, find coping mechanisms with how I feel about it. I mean, that's what that whole binder is full of. It's 3 inches of just coping mechanisms and affirmations and homework, things to do at home to make yourself feel better. That's I mean, it's not why I started playing music or anything like that, but that's a coping mechanism for me. After therapy, I wanted to take on painting, and man, I'll tell you what, after I
You
followed
bought that
along,
shit.
yeah, after I followed along with the Bob Ross tutorial and I saw like what I came up with, I haven't done it since then, which I totally should. But
Painting date. What's up?
yeah, no kidding. But it was such a it's a way to validate yourself, and it goes all the way back to if you don't have a support system, be your own and see the good in yourself and give your chance give yourself the chance to bring out that good in yourself. If you've never tried something before, try it. And it may bring a whole new meaning to your life. I mean, like, guitar is it came so easy to me, and I always thought that I would like, yeah, I'm average at guitar, but fuck that, dude. I love playing guitar. I can get people around a campfire singing and playing along, and that makes me proud, and I should be proud of that.
Banana pancakes. What's up? That's my favorite. I
No
won't lie.
fucking kidding. And like now I'm learning piano, and that gives me a really good sense of fulfillment. And now I'm doing this, which I never would have done if I wouldn't have found that confidence in myself. And this gives me so much fulfillment. It's not even fucking funny. I mean, you got to give yourself that chance to explore stuff that you haven't done before, and you might find
Go out of
something
your
that changes your whole perspective on life.
Go out of your comfort zone. I can tell you my perception of that as a veteran seeking therapy through a civilian.
I'll be right
This
back.
is all military talk, so forgive me. I sought out a civilian provider for my therapy. So when I walked in there, I didn't think that anyone would be able to relate to my military trauma, which was also deep rooted with my childhood trauma, to be honest. It had a lot to do with it. But I learned through communication, and let me tell you, my therapist now, I told her, just bits and pieces. I've only divulged the entire story to very few people. It's very hard for me to go into great detail. It's almost I, I I almost view it from like a third perspective, if that makes any sense. But when I went in there and I was talking to her about it, she did her own research and came back the next week that I saw her, and she's like, Elisa, I watched this video about basic combat training and females doing it, and let me just tell you, you fucking did that, and that's fucking cool. And I was like, yeah, I did it, but it's like, it's not a big deal. Other women have done it. And she's like, no, you did that. And that's fucking cool. And I was like, all right, it's a little cool, like, that I did that. It was very validating. So even though you may feel like there may not be any common ground, trust them to put the little bit of work in that they're supposed to do, because they will, because they care about people in general. They're not looking at you as a statistic. They're not looking at you as where you come from and what you've been through. They're literally just trying to help pick up the pieces of you that you've disregarded as nothing. Give them a chance, be honest, be forward. And again, if that mind frame and those thoughts are berating you and you feel like there's nowhere to turn, please reach out to the hotlines, because suicide is not the answer. You are worth something. You are worth something to me. I don't even know you. I may know you, and you may be watching this, and you know that I love you. I don't care who you are. I love you anyway, because you are life, you are beauty, and you are knowledge, and that is enough for me to love you. Reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, especially with this epidemic, especially with how divided we are right now. I think it's so important to really show love and support to each other. And it's 8:39. We've gone over 10 minutes of our time frame that we usually allot. So I'm ready to jump off here. I want to thank you all for watching. Bobby, what do you got?
Take it from me, you may let a year go by, and then you'll look back and you'll wonder what the fuck you were thinking when you're going through hard times. What it all boils down to, give yourself a chance. I never gave myself a chance until I felt like everything that I've worked for was going to be gone. And then that's when I gave myself a chance, because I felt like I had no other choice. And I could have done it so much earlier and saved myself a bunch of pain, and saved Kirsten a bunch of pain, and saved Amber and Lisa a bunch of pain. So as soon as you find the strength to give yourself a chance, whether it's trying something new, taking yourself to the hospital, going to therapy, talking to fucking anybody that's willing to listen, just give yourself that opportunity to grow. Don't leave it on other people's shoulders. Let them guide you, and then take that first step yourself. I think me and you can both agree. Next week, we're going to be talking about the power of positivity. We're going to switch it up a little bit.
That's right.
I had a super stressful weekend, starting off with the Black Lives Matter podcast, and now talking about suicide on Monday. Holy shit. I'm emotionally drained, so we're going to have a lot of fun next week, and hopefully sometime in the future we can set up a painting podcast where we all watch Bob Ross together and we all paint. I think that'd be a great excuse for a stream. Or do yoga. I mean, I'll have to get some stretchy shorts, but we'll figure something out. But yes, thank you for coming to Mental Health Mondays every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/BAPRSeth. Me and Elisa, we sit here and talk. Eventually, we'll be bringing you guys in to where you can share your stories, give advice if you feel like you have advice to give. This is an open forum. We want everybody to feel comfortable. If you haven't followed already, follow. It's going to be worth it. We're going to have fun. We're going to laugh. If this isn't your thing, I play games throughout the week. I do podcasts with people of my life that I think they have something to say. I'm a very open and loving person, and I want to do everything that I can to get my voice out there and have your voice out there and have you heard, especially if you're uncomfortable. This is the place to be. So thank you for joining us on Mental Health Mondays. This is our third week. Managed it for 3 weeks, and neither of us are crazy or sick of each other yet. So that's a good sign. We're going to keep that going. We will definitely see you next Monday at 7. Power of positivity. We're going to have fun. We're going to laugh.
Love trumps hate. Love each other. Ask each other how you're doing. And be honest. Be truthful. Do not lie. It is okay to not be okay, and it is okay to admit that. I'm telling you right now, do not lie to yourself, and do not lie to those who ask, because you don't have to give them in-depth explanations. You can be like, hey, I'm not having a great day. Let's leave it at that. Don't lie to yourself. Be truthful. Be honest. Love one another. Ask the hard questions, and be a support system for somebody else.
Give yourself a chance.
That's right. With that, I'm out. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for joining. I will see you next Monday. Yes, I will see you next Monday.
Love you, brother.
Love you too.